What's up, everybody? This is Ed from This Day in Metal, and today it's my pleasure to be speaking with Justin Foley, drummer from American metalcore legends Killswitch Engage. Their ninth studio album, This Consequence, is due out on Metal Blade Records on February 21st. The lead single from the album, Forever Aligned, is already out on all major streaming platforms. Justin, thank you for joining me today. How's it going, man?
Thanks for having me. Everything's going great. How are you?
Great. So we're here to talk about the new record. I listened to it a few times. I got it yesterday, and I feel like it's a really tight collection of songs that you guys have put out this time around. There's the classic elements of a Killswitch record there, but it also feels like another step forward for the evolution of the band. How would you describe this consequence to the fans out there?
Probably exactly the way that you just did. That was a good way to describe it. I'll definitely take that, you know. I think we know after so many years we know what we do well and kind of stick to our strengths, but we also, change and evolve and stuff that we like and stuff that we want to do. So we try to kind of mix in little bits of stuff that we're kind of interested in with, what the band is and try to make that work. So I would say the way you described it would be great. I'd be very happy with that description.
All right, good. That means we're off to a good start then.
Yeah.
Um, Aside from, people have heard Forever Aligned, which songs on the new record are you most proud of or most excited for people to hear? I mean, along those same lines, thinking of like the evolution of the band, like another step forward, maybe something you guys tried something different this time around.
That one, Forever Line, probably would be the top of the list for me. I think that song really came out great and is a good indication of kind of what the band does when we're doing it well and we got something that's exciting that we're all excited about and everything. That song is kind of a good representation of what comes out of us, I think. I think that's a real good one. And there's some cool stuff. There's one song that's like super kind of blazing fast, almost like more death metal-y. I think it was like an Adam demo, and he wasn't even sure if we were gonna like it, and we're all like, yeah, that's cool. Let's run with that. I think it's the It Falls on Me, I think is what that one ended up being called. It's sort
The
of
the Fall of Us.
the Fall of Us. That's right.
Yeah,
I don't
I
even
was
know our song titles yet.
well, so I was actually going to ask you about that one because I
Yeah,
mean that intro is like such a technical death metal intro.
yeah.
I think more so than you guys have ever. There's always been elements there, but I think that was like I heard that I'm like, wait, is this Kill Switch? I'm like, and that was like a pleasant surprise for me. That was pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of blasting going on in that
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. Yeah, I
A
mean
little bit
that
of a
like
workout.
when I found out I was interviewing you, I'm like, I should probably listen to the drums. So, and that one stood out to me. I was like, I need to ask him about that because that is such a brutal intro, and it quickly shifts into something else, and it's very cool.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's kind of a good example of us kind of getting a little outside of what is very comfortable. You know, I think we all like listening to blistering death metal.
Who doesn't?
So, but yeah, we don't fancy ourselves a blistering death metal band at all, or people that can pull off playing blistering death metal. But if we put a little tiny bit of it somewhere, we might be able to pull it off. So I think that was a good spot for it there. Yeah, that's a good one. And there's one other one. God, I can't believe I'm blanking on all our song titles right now. We just had like working titles forever, and then it's like finally, it's like done, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, Broken Glass is the other one. That one's kind of like just sort of different. I think that's a very different song too, and it sort of stands out. It's just I don't know how to describe it really, but I don't think that sounds very much like hardly anything that we've probably done before. But yet, hopefully, it doesn't sound like or stick out like a sore thumb. It's kind of like a kill switch song,
No,
Hopefully.
and having spun the record a couple of times, it's cohesive. The songs are tight. I feel like it's less songs than you guys typically do on an album. I mean, not by much, but it's there. The songs are concise, they're tight, and you can tell that they were poured over pretty meticulously. I mean, I think that's the case probably every time you guys are in the studio. Um, but I
Well, it
mean, you
took
could probably,
forever.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you
It
could
took
probably
for
speak to it better than I can.
yeah, it took forever to make it. So in that regard, yeah, they were definitely poured over. Um, but we just felt like we wanted something that was sort of really to the point and shorter. We didn't, if anything, wasn't if there was anything that made it feel like there was any kind of lull in the flow of the album, we wanted to just sort of get rid of those, whether it was track list order or anything. And we just kind of thought that it was strongest as, a 10 song record, it kind of um had the most impact when it was that length, and that's just what we went with.
Yeah, that and the songs themselves deal with some heavy topics. Yet, despite that, I feel like there's also an optimistic tone to it, despite some of the things that are being described. Is that an accurate way to describe, Jesse's lyrics on this one?
Yeah, I think in general that's something that the band's done sort of forever. Having an optimistic spin on stuff where even from the beginning, just and with Howard, the way Howard would write too, sort of dealing with some heavy stuff, but always trying to find some positivity in it. I think that's sort of one of the hallmarks of the band.
Absolutely, and I think this record's no exception to that long history that you guys have, regardless of whether it was Jesse or Howard as the front man. You spoke about how it took forever to make this record. From what I saw, you guys took a different approach to the songwriting this time. I think Mike said it was the first time you guys really like hashed things out in like the same room together in a long time. Um,
Yeah, it had been a while. We got together for the first time and just sort of, instead of having all of us bringing what we would consider completed ideas and then kind of working through that, we kind of got together and we had very rough ideas. We would have a riff here or there, or sometimes we would just sort of start putting riffs together in the room, just to see, I guess one reason maybe to see if we could still do it. And just kind of mix it up a little bit, just to try to get sort of a different feel from it. And I think maybe it was we hadn't been together too much for so long with the pandemic and everything. We'd been apart for a long time, so it was just fun to get together and having isolation kind of forced on all of us. We wanted to get away from isolation, so we wanted to get together and get all of us together in a room and just sort of see what happens. And we wrote a lot of it like that. There are obviously some times you have an idea and you write a demo or something, and it's pretty hashed out. And if we all like it, we're going to use it. We're not going to not use it because we decided not, to try something different. So there's a mix of that on there. There's some stuff that's like sort of nearly completed, things that one person or another would have brought to the table. And then there's some stuff from those sessions where we were just sort of all together and hashing stuff out as it came.
and is that has been
Steve's here
and
now. Steve wants
who's
to.
this?
This is Steve. He just jumped up.
All right, so Steve has joined our interview. That's Justin's cat.
Now he's left.
Now he's left. He's departed. So back to the album and the writing process. And that's different from what you guys would typically do because being so far apart. I was listening to an interview that you did recently where you said it used to be kind of like you do it through GarageBand. People would send different parts. Like, where do you come in that process? Like, will Adam or Joel send you a riff, or will you be working with Mike? Like, how does it work for you in terms of like the songwriting process?
Yeah, like we used to when we were living all in the same area, we got together, all the time to write together, kind of like we just sort of did. And then once we sort of moved to various locations, it was just a lot of sending stuff back and forth. But yeah, it's sort of like we all kind of do the same thing. We all sort of write songs. Like we all write songs and we all write riffs and parts and everything. We all kind of send them to each other, and it's like I'm not much of a guitar player, but I have an idea and I'll say, hey guys, something like this, but make it better. You guys are good. Like what would this sound like if a good guitar player did it? That would be cool. Like that kind of thing. And Adam and I, since Adam was the drummer before, has a very he has a very drumming mind in general. But me and him kind of think differently on drum parts, and it's cool to put our two drum brains together to come up with parts that'll work. Like he'll come up with stuff that I would never dream of, and I'll come up with stuff that he wouldn't think of either. So it's kind of fun to just mix all that stuff together. It's the same with all the parts, really. We're all kind of pitching ideas to everybody about all the instruments, really.
Yeah. And for you personally, like what, like we talked about the Fall of Us, like what parts of the record are you most proud of in terms of like your contributions and any parts that really pushed you into new territory? I know we spoke about Fall of Us, which has that kind of brutal, technical, almost it borders on blast beats, I feel like, in the beginning.
Yeah,
And
yeah, this is
then
the last time for sure.
yeah. So is
There's
there
a lot of
any
blasting on the record. I love blast beats. I'm not like super fast blast beater, and I can't do all the crazy like the crazy foot stuff that all the kids these days are doing with all the double strokes. But I can do a decent old man blast. And a lot of times we did a lot in Disarm the Descent whenever we kind of were stuck with something, we just said, let's try a blast beat. And like most of the time it works. So it's
yeah,
really kind of a fun thing to put in there.
yeah,
But
it's
back to what you're asking before. I guess one of them, Broken Glass, was a riff that I had come up with. So it's always cool when I come up with a riff that makes the record. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm I'm not worthless. I got something to offer. And then the other song, Aftermath, was a cool one too, because I kind of had this, it was sort of after we did our writing sessions and we were like, maybe we should get some more ideas and everything. And I sort of had that idea and I sent a demo out to everybody. And I think like 2 days later, Jesse had sent vocals back, which was like super duper fast. So it
mhm.
really, like, whatever it was about that demo uh struck him, and he popped back that pretty close to how it ended up finished, really. And it was that was a cool thing. So it was kind of neat to have something happen like that. So in general, the record did take a very, very long time to do, but there were some pretty fast bits of creative bursts, and that was one of them. So that was kind of a neat thing.
Yeah, and that one has a very big chorus from what I recall from my listening to the record. And it's one of the more not that there are, it was one of the things that stuck out to me and kind of stuck in my head. Like I'm singing it I've only listened to it 5 times, but I can sing it in my head right now. So kudos
That's
to
what you
you
want, right?
on writing that. Yeah. It's
Get
it
some catchy stuff in there.
absolutely. So you guys are also set to embark on a North American tour in March to promote the album with Kubla Khan, Fit for a King, and Frozen Soul. It's about a 4 or 5 week run through North America. What can the fans expect from those shows? I
Well,
mean, the cla
they can expect us to be the least heavy band on the bill for sure. They can expect us to get pummeled by all the other bands, which is pretty. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a heavy ass lineup. Um, yeah, we're gonna play some new stuff. We've played. I mean, the last record came out in 2019, which is a long time ago. Of course, there was a giant interruption in the middle, so it wasn't normal touring cycle. But still, for it seems like it's been a long time where we've sort of been playing similar songs or similar sets and everything. So it'd be great to have new stuff to breathe some fresh life into the set list for sure.
Add a couple into the repertoire, yeah, for sure. Personally, I'm located on Long Island. Any reason? And this is a trend I'm noticing with a lot of tours. Is there any reason for no stop in New York City or like that area?
Probably because whatever the next one is has it. That's
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
sure.
usually
I'm
like
not
it's
100% sure, but
yeah.
like I'm sure that whatever the next tour that we'll have that. I think that this one might be strategically missing some places that there's another thing planned to go to those places. I think that's probably
Okay.
why that stuff happens.
I'm noticing it as a greater I'm not saying just for you guys, but I'm noticing it with like other bands too, where they're like they'll play Connecticut, they'll play Jersey, but they will skip like Metro New York. But I was trying
I
to
don't
get
know.
to the bottom of something.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the venues, like a lot of the heavier venues or venues that the heavy bands would play, some of them are gone too. That could
Yeah,
be part of it.
that's true too.
We played Roseland a bunch, and Roseland's gone.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, that could be part of it. Like St. Vitus is gone now, so that, you know,
Yeah, that was a big one.
that could be part of it.
Yeah. King's Theater gets a bunch of metal shows coming through these days, so I think maybe they've kind of taken over, but that's something to be addressed on the next tour. But for this tour, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to getting back out there, playing the North American cities. I think you guys played them in 2023 and then mostly like festivals and some other, out of the country stuff last year. So that'll be exciting for everybody to get a chance to come back and see you guys play some new tunes.
Yeah, I hope
Um,
so. Last year was a little bit sort of random scattering of touring and kind of, working on the record, finishing the record, doing a random bit here and there. So it's nice to sort of get it back to a little more normal where we have this come out and we have, tours, like legit tours with a good package and good kind of extended run.
yeah. So when I was preparing for this article, for this interview, I read an article, and it had this line that stuck out to me about you and your playing style. And it says Justin doesn't quite fit into the normal metal drummer stereotype. And that's because you studied percussion and you've played with orchestras, correct?
Yep.
And you know, you have a wide variety of influences from, different composers, rock and metal drummers. I think jazz, correct?
A
A
little
little
bit.
bit.
Jazz less than classical, but yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about, who those influences are and like how having that broad scope of influences has shaped you as a player.
I think listening is listening is like a huge part of being a musician. And when no matter what style of music you're doing, you kind of learn how to listen. You learn how to listen differently. And like if you're playing in an orchestra, you're keying on to different things going on in the orchestra and you're listening and all of it draws you out of the part that you're doing. So rather than having kind of your head in what you're doing and everything, you're into what else is happening. And it's almost like you have to know with a lot of that stuff, you have to know your part so well that you aren't even really thinking about anything that you're doing. It just sort of happens. And you're blending it in with all this other stuff. And there's so many more subtleties and ways that can happen with things like an orchestra and everything because there's dynamic playing and then there's just all kinds of stuff that when you're in a metal band bashing away a lot of it doesn't come into play, but it does, but it's still enough of it does come into play where you notice that kind of stuff when it's not kind of going well. And I think one thing for us that sort of helped me with is we've still have resisted playing to clicks live and everything, and we just like to play like as a band. We don't want to rely on anything else. The kind of same way that we always did it when we were playing in clubs and like in all our other bands pre Killswitch and everything. And it just sort of whatever hardcore kid mentality is behind that. We didn't want to lose that. We still wanted to do that. So
Mhm.
some days I'll be rushing like crazy and the songs are way too fast. But maybe there's a certain kind of energy to that. But part of the experience of playing with so many like varied and different musicians is listening, and then it kind of lends itself to that. Obviously, the five of us have been together so long that we can just sort of play uh play pretty, it's comfortable, it's comfortable. But we're still listening, and I find myself, hearing what's going on and like trying to trying to make sure that everything I'm kind of holding everything together. And a lot of that is from the actual performance of playing with like just different styles and different groups from all of that. And just yeah, that would be kind of like the performance bit that I would say I took from it. And then as far as just writing, it's just I just think the more that you listen to and the more that you just sort of experience, it just influences like everything that you do, and it gives you different ideas and your different tonalities or different progressions, or it's hard to describe really, but listening to like a I really like the Russian composers. So like listening to like a Shostakovich symphony or something like that. It's like it's really balls heavy. Like it's crazy how heavy
Eh,
that gets. And then so you can get ideas from that, whether it's a progression or it's a weird um clashing of notes that you wouldn't normally think of, and you would think, oh, I wonder if that would work with the band or with the song or this idea I had. Oh, maybe this idea that just isn't settling right. Maybe if I think along the lines of what was happening in that piece, maybe something else will come out of it. So yeah, just all of it. I like to try and see music as music rather than compartmentalizing it so much.
mhm.
So I think you can take from everything, and it might sound crazy to think that um, a metal band would take something from a classical composer, but I think it makes perfect sense, and I think it's fun to do, and it's yeah, I'm really into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that the when you put it that way, it makes it. I mean, I'm not as musically inclined maybe as you are, but it does make sense to. It's like you have an idea where you have this dynamic sound or combination of notes that's working so well in a symphony or whatever, and applying it. It's worth at least trying to apply it to your band and see how you can apply it in a metal sense, even, right?
Yeah, and like everyone's gonna know if you rip off an Iron Maiden song, but no one's gonna know if you rip off a Rimsky-Korsakov
I
progression,
don't
right?
think
No one's
I don't
gonna
think
know
as many
that.
people are well versed in that.
Yeah, so you can
Oh,
steal stuff way and not get caught.
it's
That's
a it's an homage. It's not ripping off. It's an homage.
yeah,
It's a tribute, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you spoke about the bands that you played in previous to Killswitch. So you played in a group called Red Tide from Connecticut, and you were also in Blood Has Been Shed with Howard Jones prior
Yep,
to him joining Killswitch, correct?
yep.
Okay, so was Red Tide? I mean, obviously, I think Blood Has Been Shed was part of that same scene as Killswitch. Were you familiar with those guys from the scene prior to joining? And how exactly did you end up joining Killswitch?
I was very familiar with Overcast. They were one of my favorite bands, so I
Okay.
saw Overcast a whole ton of times. I don't really know anybody in it. Um, I can't say if I don't know if I even ever met Mike. I just went to a bunch of shows and watched Overcast play a whole ton.
Mm.
Maybe I said hi once or twice. I don't remember if Red Tide ever played with Overcast. Maybe once. No one, Overcast was a very popular, uh, I don't really want to say local, but hardcore, like New England, Northeast hardcore band.
Well,
They were super
that was
popular.
the beginning of, like Killswitch. Like Mike was there, Brian was there from Shadows
Yeah.
Fall. So that was kind of the beginning of that whole scene that kind of birthed those bands, correct?
Yeah. Sorry, Steve's going crazy right now behind me. He's
That's all right.
trying to get back.
I'll put Steve in the credits for this interview
Yeah,
too.
perfect. He's being a lunatic. Um, but um, yeah, so I kind of, I was aware of Mike. I didn't know too much about Aftershock. Uh, yeah, I wasn't too familiar with them. And then when Killswitch started, you know, I was just vaguely aware of it because it was like, oh, Mike's cool. Mike's got a new band. I'll check
Hmm.
check that out. And then, Brian then ended up joining Shadows Fall, and I was like, I remember thinking that was like a perfect. It was almost like it's like a savvy business merger because Shads was like a real big band and Overcast was a big band, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it's like combining
Yeah.
Like I was, wow, that's brilliant. Of course, it's gonna be great. Um, and then yeah, and then just through, I just eventually joined Blood Has Been Shed because the drummer wanted to switch to bass, and the way it was, everybody kind of just saw everybody play. So even if you didn't know people, people knew all the different musicians or whatever. So Corey from Blood Has Been Shed had seen Red Tide play and thought that I would be a good fit for the band to do all the crazy stuff he was thinking in his head. So that's kind of how I got involved in that. And then Howard joined Killswitch, and then so he was doing all the Killswitch touring, and then we did like a couple little things when he wasn't touring. We didn't do like Blazing Shed wasn't doing a whole lot of touring anyway. It was just sort of like shows here and there, nothing crazy. It wasn't like a full-time band. Like the other
Mhm.
guys had jobs and lives that it wasn't gonna let that happen. But we still, we could still go out and do like a week and a half run or something like that. So we would do some stuff like that. And yeah, it was basically just because me and Howard were real close in Blood Has Been Shed, and when uh it came time for a new Killswitch drummer, Howard just said, "Yeah, I know someone that could do it." It's pretty much that. I feel like the guys didn't put a whole lot of thought into it, and they were just like, "Sure, come on, do it." I
I'm
feel
sure
like
there
if
was a
they,
little bit more thought behind it than that.
I don't know, I feel like they just sort of were just like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine. You can play it, whatever."
I don't know if you would have lasted this long if it was just like, yeah, all right, we'll get Justin to do it. I don't think it would be, I don't think that would have happened. So I think you should give yourself a little bit more credit.
I
But
guess.
so you joined in like late 2003, right? And then the first record you record is The End of Heartache, which eventually goes gold and gets nominated for a Grammy. And then you end up opening for Slayer on the Jägermeister Music Tour by the fall of 2004. So my question to you is, what was that first year in the band like? Were you kind of like, is this how it always goes? Like that's an incredible kind of run right there.
It was nuts, but none of us thought it was how it goes because it was nuts for everybody because they were just starting to kind of get over like whatever the hump was when I joined.
Mm,
Like they had just come off of Ozfest was the last thing they did.
yeah.
But they had a rotation slot in Ozfest, and it was brutal, and it was like long. Like they still talk about how long it was. And it was like a difficult tour, but they still weren't sure if it did anything for them. Like
Hmm.
they'd just done it. They had fun, but they were just like, and they had, they were doing some more stuff, but they came back from that, and then I joined, and the first tour that we did was Headbangers Ball tour, and it was us and Lamb of God and Shadows Fall, Unearth, God forbid. Like, and that was sort of like a risk tour, I think, because putting putting like or I guess it was five, putting the five bands together was sort of a newish idea that no one was quite sure if it was going to work. Like, are we? Because we're all sort of came from the same
Yeah.
place. We were like the
Hmm.
same. We had been bands about the same amount of time. We knew each other coming up like this. We were all like coming up like this. Did it make sense to put a whole bunch of bands that were in the same kind of place together? Without like a bigger draw, like no one knew how it was going to work. And it turned out great. Like it did really, really well. And then that was sort of it was a really, I guess it was a confidence booster or something. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then we went home from that tour and recorded Heartache, and then things went pretty crazy after that. But we were all just sort of like Howard and I couldn't believe what was happening,
Yeah. It's
especially.
a year
I
in,
did the
like,
best. I didn't know the other guys so well, and I was new in the band. But Howard, like, we would always like if we did have a hotel room, it was always Howard and I together because we were the guys that knew each other
mhm.
pretty much. And we were just constantly talking about how ridiculous it was and like how silly all of it was. Especially the Grammy nomination was just hysterical.
Yeah.
We just busted up laughing about how crazy it all was. So, but
Yeah.
but the other thing that was fun was that it was happening for the other bands too. Like all of us from
Yeah.
that scene were doing really well and starting to the tours just got bigger and the shows got bigger. So it was very, very fun.
Yeah, I'm writing it out before. I was like, wow, like they joined, and then a year later, they're opening for Slayer and nominated for a Grammy. Very cool. So speaking of like those, live shows and the years with Howard, by far one of my favorite covers, maybe ever, is your guys' version of Holy Diver. I know you guys still play it live pretty frequently. Like, how did that cover come to be? I know it was part of something for Kerrang.
Mhm.
Um, but how did you come to cover that song? Because I think it works so well between Howard's vocals, everybody's playing. It's really an incredible version.
Yeah, we had a list of songs from them and to kind of pick for that compilation, that metal compilation. And that song wasn't on it. There was a different Dio song on it that we wanted. We were like, oh, well, we should do the Dio song. But then we are kind of like, well, if we're gonna do a Dio song,
Yeah.
like we should probably do Holy Diver. And we asked if it was okay, and they're like, yeah, sure. So we did it, and we're like, all right, well, if we're gonna do Holy Diver, Howard, you got to just go for it and sing it. And he's like, okay. So it was sort of like we didn't. I don't know. It was sort of a fun. It was we were looking at it like as it was a super fun one-off throwaway thing to do.
Yeah.
Just do it, get some laughs out of it. Howard and Adam said that when they were tracking the vocals, they just could not stop laughing. Like Howard would get like one line out and just bust and laugh forever. And then like 10 minutes later, they would get the next line and laugh. And it took forever because they just could not, they were just cracking each other up because they were like, all right, we're doing it. We're going for it. And it came out great. Obviously it came out great, but we didn't think it was going to do anything. And
Mhm.
then everyone just kept asking about it, and it sort of became crazy, uh, a crazy like I guess like live party song, really.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great. I mean, the if you reflect on the song, like it's got to be a little silly to sing those lyrics. I love Dio. Dio,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dio is a metal god, but it's a little silly to be singing about a holy diver and all these different things. So I can imagine you guys in the studio when it was going on.
yeah. Like, what does it mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but
what
yeah,
does any of it mean?
years later, we're still all trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, the video we had to take that same mentality into the video too, and just go,
Oh, you got to go all in.
yeah, absolutely, no
Well,
half.
you guys all seem like you have a very good sense of humor about yourselves, and you don't really take yourselves too seriously when it comes to that kind of stuff. So it lends itself well to that.
It was a perfect storm of situations coming together. It all worked out, and it's who would have thought we would never have thought that it would turn into whatever it turned into, and that people still want us to play it. And with another saying now, Jesse's doing it, and Jesse's singing it, and we've done it with Joey.
Yeah,
Like Joey from Anthrax has done it with us like a million times. It's gotten so crazy.
yeah, and now you have to play it almost. Yeah. Um, all right, so you guys are like we were talking about. You guys are really known for energetic live shows. You played festivals and shows all over the world. You've opened for the likes of Slayer and Iron Maiden. What's the most surreal moment that you've had playing like around the world, or like the coolest travel experience that you've been afforded by playing in this band?
I mean, that's such a hard thing to answer because all of it's been so incredible. But um, one thing that is really nuts, speaking of Anthrax, one of
Yeah.
the first things that we did um, right after, or maybe even before Heartache came out, we did uh, a tour with Anthrax in Australia and Japan. I was a massive Anthrax fan, like a huge part of um, me just learning how to play drums was playing Anthrax records.
With Charlie Benante, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And so to do that was just such a cool thing. And then they were great. They were super nice, and it was just really fun to be out with them. So we did that tour, and then it was either that summer or the next summer. We were playing one of the festivals in Europe. Anthrax was playing the festival also, and we're playing. And I look over at the side of the stage, and Charlie's over there watching it, and he's air drumming.
To you.
to me. I was just like,
Could have died right there, right?
yeah, that was
Yeah.
crazy. Like
Yeah.
that was absolutely crazy that Charlie was air drumming one of our songs. Yeah, that's probably one of the ones that just sticks out. That was just nuts to me.
That's great. That's great. I know when you guys, I watched the documentary Beyond the Flames, I believe it's called. I know you're an avid sports fan. And in the documentary, you said you were trying to knock off every MLB park. That is also a pursuit that I am after. Have you now been to all 30 stadiums?
Nope, I'm a couple short, and it's getting weird. With it's definitely getting weird. I had the Rangers, I had the ballpark in Arlington, but now they're in a new place. I haven't been to the new one yet.
Hmm.
Minnesota is lacking. I mean, not lacking. Minnesota is still on my list.
It's
I don't have
eluding you.
Minnesota. What's that?
It's eluding you right now. You can't
Yes,
get,
yes.
yeah.
We had a tour routing that we had a day off in Minnesota, and we were going to go to a game, and the Yankees happened to be playing that day,
Hmm.
and I was like, perfect. And then routing changed, and we didn't go to the game, and it was like the craziest game ever that the Yanks won 15-14, and like,
Oh my God, that one. I remember
yeah,
that
yeah,
game. That game. Oh,
the one that ended with oh my God, Aaron Hicks. The one that ended with Aaron
yeah.
Hicks making that diving catch with the
Yes, he
baseball
made a
that blew the
diving
bat
catch
up.
in the out in center
We would have been
field.
at that game if we didn't change the tour routing. So I'm really irked that Minnesota is still on the list because that would have just been perfect.
Yeah.
But I got the rest of them. Now the Oakland Coliseum's gone, so that's kind of in limbo until whatever. Who knows
Until
what's
they
going
go to
on?
Vegas or Sacramento or wherever.
Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm getting close. But I just knocked off last year. I knocked off Baltimore and San Francisco, um, which were stubborn holdouts and two of the nicest parks also.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually just did Camden last year and it was gorgeous.
Yeah,
I'm like, why haven't I done this before? So which out of all those parks, which one's your favorite?
Pittsburgh.
I agree. Pittsburgh is gorgeous. That is a
Yeah,
gorgeous park with the background, the bridges in the background. Great park.
it's perfect. It's just
Yeah.
baseball. It's like
Yes. It
it's
is
it's
it
awesome.
agreed. San
How many more do
Francisco
you have to go?
close. I have nine more to go, but I'm not going to get Oakland. I
Yeah,
never did Oakland, so I'm kind of mad about that. And if technically the ballpark at Arlington doesn't count, I have to go back to Texas now. But
and
yeah,
it's damn greedy owners can't go more than 20
exactly.
years without a stadium screwing up our baseball our
Yeah.
stadium counts.
Yeah, I got nine more. I'm hoping to knock a few more off in the coming years, but we'll see. But I wish you
Seattle's
luck.
another
As
one that's
someone
way
who's
up.
also trying to do that, I wish you luck in your pursuit.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, it's great. It's fun. Touring helps.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not exactly touring. I try to plan my own tours where I go and see a concert and see a ball game and that kind of thing.
That's great. Yeah.
So we'll
Seattle's
see.
another one of my favorites. That's really high on the list. I
Which is
love
that?
Seattle.
Seattle was great. Seattle. I met the Mariner Moose out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That was a high point for me.
Yeah.
So, um, also I saw in the documentary you keep detailed notes for every live show. Are you still doing that?
Nope. I did for a long, long time, and I not too long after that documentary. It was before the last record came out, so it was during like that touring cycle that somehow like a tour disappeared from like my thing, and
Hmm.
I was just like, whatever, I'm over it, and I just
Okay.
stopped.
That's fair. There's always setlist.fm, but I mean, you
Yeah,
were doing it before that. You were kind of a pioneer for that.
I had a little notebook, like I did it with Blazeman Shed. I had the real kind of small notebook, and I would just write the set down and where we were.
Hmm.
Uh, and they were like these, I don't know how to describe. They were like these little, almost like postcards, kind of for different like show flyer. Like people would hand them out on your way out or
Hmm.
whatever. So if I happened to have one from the show, I could like staple it to the backside of the paper in a little thing. Um, and then Killswitch, I started the same kind of way. I started writing, and then it just there's too many shows, and then I just had to like you know uh, digitalize them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I stopped doing that.
Okay. I wanted to see. Last kind of silly question. Does the band still have an obsession with The Price is Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's on the bus most mornings for sure.
Okay.
How could you not? And it's a
It's
great
true.
show. When Adam just went and dominated the show, it was so
That's, watching that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. When he gets up there and he's got the car and he's going nuts. It was absolutely hilarious. You guys are a very funny band. Very, very funny band.
high comedy. It's
High
great.
comedy for sure. All right, so I want to end with this on a more serious note with a quote from Mike D. Okay,
All right.
the band is still just a group of friends who got together to play music, but to some of the biggest crowds we could have ever imagined. So, how is your experience these last 20 years, 20 plus years, compared to your expectations when you joined the band back in 2003?
Yeah, it's blown any expectation completely. Like it's crazy. It's like just being like a kid learning music and watching concerts and thinking, oh, that'd be cool to do that. I think hopefully I can do that someday. And it's literally a dream to do it. And then to have it happen is just it's crazy. Even though it's a dream, you still don't really think it's a reachable dream, especially when you're playing a style of music that is popular, but it has a ceiling.
Mhm.
Metal does it's definitely has its very, very devoted fan base, but it's also never going to get to crazy.
It's not going to be top 40.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. But things have also changed so much. Like to think about when what's cool is what the whole knock loose thing that just happened with
Oh,
when
with
they were on
Jimmy Kimmel.
TV.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of people got super pissed off about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like it's
Yeah.
so
Very, yeah.
awesome
Very
that that
cool.
happened. Yeah, it's great, great. We did a couple shows or 2 or 3 shows in Europe with them
Mm.
this past summer. Super duper cool. And it reminded me kind of when Metallica played the Grammys. They played one, so it had to be
Mm.
Injustice for All.
Yeah.
And people were like freaked out, right? Like,
That was probably when
what?
they lost to Jethro Tull.
Yep, it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were like were freaking out that Metallica was on TV, and people were like, "What is this noise? This garbage?" And like, what now? There's not a single sporting event where Enter Sandman isn't played, and little kids are just
I
dancing to
just
it.
loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like it's just I don't know how I got on this tangent, but the knock loose thing is like for me it seems like another moment of that happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, also yeah, so you're talking about just metal in general. Yeah, so it's like I wouldn't have expected to play any of these shows or any of these crazy festivals or anything, but yeah, it's been awesome. And Mike's totally right. We just still want to do that. We still just want to play music and just hang out.
That's the goal.
We've scammed people into buying our buying our music and
25
making them
years and running. Hopefully 25 more, right?
long, long scam.
All right, Justin, I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. Killswitch Engage's ninth studio album, This Consequence, is due out on Metal Blade Records on February 21st. Forever Aligned, the lead single, is already out on all major streaming platforms. They're touring North America this March and April. You can go to their website, killswitchengage.com, for information about the album, pre-ordering the album, and ticket information. Justin, thanks so much for doing this, man. I can't wait for everyone to hear the new record. And best of luck with everything moving forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your time. This has been a nice chat.
All right. Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much. And I'll see you out on tour if you guys come through New York City.
We have to. I mean, come
Yeah,
on, it's New York City, right?
absolutely. You got to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, no worries. Take it easy.